What's going on, folks? This is another one from one half of A House Divided. Your resident Michigan fan, Marcus here. Going to go ahead and discuss this past weekend's game against Central Michigan. Talk pregame against Nebraska this coming Saturday. So a lot of things to discuss. Before we get to that, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. As always, we're trying to grow this thing out. Make sure you follow us on the game breakdowns throughout the week. We'll have the big college football show at 11 every Saturday with myself, Johnny, Mays, Maniac, the whole crew. So join in on that as well. Other than that, let's go ahead and run it. So first things first, not a very daunting opponent. On Saturday, nothing that we were really gearing up for. But did have to focus in enough not to look forward to Nebraska the following week, right? So, one of those focus games, especially coming off Oklahoma, where we didn't put up the offensive output that we were necessarily looking for or expecting. So, I really looked for them to come out fast in that game, and they did. Um, Certain things that seemed to be off the table for the Oklahoma game were on the table here, and it honestly made a world of difference. We talked about a little bit last week that if this offense looked night and day different, it had to be a little bit of a come to Jesus moment with Sherrone. And I think Biff, man, he's a good guy to have in your corner because he massaged a lot in terms of what people were probably thinking about the situation offensively with the play calling and how conservative they were being. Man, did he do a job to try to make him look good? Saying that Sherrone was the one that said the QB runs were back on the table and that he wanted to unleash Bryce, and we won't be taking the air out of the ball ever again, and bunch of coach speak, but you could tell that there was just a different attitude towards how aggressive they were going to be with him this week, and I appreciated it for sure. Over 250 yards passing, over 100 yards rushing. Just a dynamo day, absolute dynamo day. Really show what he can do when the offense is completely balanced, and I think we only get there this year with him being involved in the running game. Offensive line, we had Brady Norton out as well as Giovanni Ohadi. So a lot of Nathan Afobe, Lawrence Attar got in there. Night and day difference from the Oklahoma game. Again, should be considering the personnel that's involved. But even still, there was a much better, I think, leverage of the game. Even from the New Mexico game, they showed much better lean this game. A lot of the in between the big runs were a lot of the chunks, those 7, 8, 10, 12-yard runs that we look to get in the midst of the long home run stuff, which is still popping off consistently. Every game now they've had multiple long runs where it seems like, that's going to be something that we can depend on somewhat this year. It's kind of the in-between game, the consistent drive, sustaining kind of running game that has been up and down so far this season. So it was good to see them get back to it. Over 300 yards rushing against the Chippewas there. So all of that's very encouraging. Blake Frazier looks like he's going to be able to play a lot more, maybe even later into the season. We'll see how that goes. I like him as the bonus offensive lineman in the run game right now. Jake Grenier, I think, got in a little bit as well. He looked okay. He looked all right. So nobody really looked bad this game. I even think Evan Link is coming along a bit as well. I just kind of keep my eye on Blake Frazier because it's kind of how I felt about Trente Jones. They used him a lot as the bonus offensive lineman in their jumbo packaging. But man, if he wasn't the better option at right tackle, and I think that ended up proving itself out later in the season there of 2023. But in any case, decent performers by the offensive line. Running backs, Justice Haynes looks like an alpha. He looks like the guy. Jordan Marshall had a much better game this game, even though, it didn't pop off the screen yardage wise. I think he ran a lot better this game than he has in the first two. So that was encouraging. And then just to see the depth of the room there in the running back position, Cusdell, Jasper Parker. You still got guys like Kayapana in the room. You still got, Donovan Johnson that's going to be working his way back, until he's completely 100% healthy. I know he had a pretty serious injury in the senior year of his high school career, so can only imagine how far along he is now after going through a first year of college camp. But that top 3 or 4 backs in the room right now seems pretty positive. I like what we're getting. Wide receiver wise, they've continued to grow. Channing Goodwin popped again. Donovan McCulley is I think the alpha male in the room. Seeing what they're doing right now with Samaj Moore just continues to make me very upset with how they used him last year. Night and day difference in terms of effectiveness and in terms of, you know, production. It's like even now he's still kind of making some of those come on, Samaj, don't make that play type of plays, drops every now and again, but they're feeding him so much that he's able to cover it up with production now. It's not like we throw him a pass, we didn't hit him, and now we don't even call his name again until the third quarter. That's just not going to be the way things run now offensively. So he seems to be a weapon, seems to be accenting Donovan McCulley and Marlon Klein when he's 100% healthy, accenting those guys well. That's another thing in the tight end room. If Zach Marshall isn't ready to play, man, I think we've got a Rolodex of tight ends, young tight ends in there. Deacon Tonielli's still there. Brady Prieskorn's still there. I don't want to see Zach whiffing on too many more blocks. There's too many options to go to. And I'm sure he's earned his opportunity to go out there and play. But at the end of the day, what happens, out there in the game time is what matters. And so, it hasn't looked great early on this season. Hopefully it gets better if he continues to get an opportunity. If not, there's plenty of other guys we can roll through there in the tight end room. Defensively, I'm not sure what happened to TJ Guy. I didn't really hear anybody talking about it yet. I'll have to listen to some of the defensive coaches this week when they do their press conferences. But I don't know. I didn't see him on the injury report, and I didn't know that he was out. But Jayshon Barham picked up the slack at edge, and by pick up the slack, I mean looks like the most effective edge we have. So something's got to give there. I think we got 3 guys right now that are legitimate starter level, but it's one guy who's actually popping and making plays, and we got to find a way to continue to feed him there. I don't know if they're going to maybe start Jayshon there. I don't know what that means for TJ Guy or Derek Moore for that matter, or just kind of plan to rotate him in at edge periodically, move him around so that they don't know where he's at, a la Abdul Carter. Right, just moving. Now, don't actually change his whole position to, defensive end because we don't have another one, or whatever the hell that was. But just the same concept of just kind of moving him along the line and then back to linebacker, so they have to identify him every time. I think that's an advantage. Another strong day from the middle guys, from the linebackers. Ernie Roeder looked good. Cole Sullivan looked good. Nickel play has been very good so far this season. It's been so much so that you're not calling their name much if they're not making play, if they're not getting an interception or something like that, because they're not able to go to them. I think the slots have been rightly covered this year, and that's starter and backups. I think TJ Metcalf is doing an amazing job at the nickel right now, and I think a guy like Elijah Dotson is really putting his stamp early on, getting some early PT there and catching the interception. If there's any cause for concern on the defensive end, it's to continue to keep contained. Continue to fight contain. That's something that Jayshon Barham did really well this game, and why his projection towards the edge feels a little bit like what this team needs, because there's too many times against Oklahoma where we would be there, we'd be in position to hold the edge and just didn't. So, something to look forward to there. I think that the secondary played pretty well. There was talks of Rob Moore maybe coming back this game, so hopefully we'll see him against Nebraska. Everything else, man, get healthy. I guess we can kind of go into what we're going to see here going on the road to Lincoln. A couple things are going to be key here. Who touches whose quarterback first? That'd be a big deal. I think that keeping Bryce clean on the road, as we saw in Norman, is going to be a big deal. And then getting him comfortable early, right? Let's call some of them quarterback runs in the first quarter, so he can get lathered up. Sometimes an athlete like that, a really springy athlete, needs to feel the game. I mean, you kind of hate to say it, but he needs to feel the game. He can't stand back there and be an observer for a whole fourth quarters. You kind of need to lather him up a bit. Again, he's not a running back. We're not trying to run him 20 times a game. He is not DeMar Robinson. It's not Denard, not Shoelace. But at the same time, if we're going to be using him and like the weapon he is, it's better to get him into a positive rhythm, momentum as fast as possible. And the quickest way to do that is hit the edge, as well as the run control, bubble screens, and stuff of that nature. I just feel like teams are going to be. It's such a standard part of college offense now that anybody worth their salt with a strong defensive secondary is going to be able to take that away. And so, what do you do then? What else can you do to keep your quarterback upright and comfortable, besides cutting the field in half and doing short rollouts and things like that? So I think for Michigan, excuse me, I think Nebraska is going to have a hard time blocking Michigan up front, which a lot of teams are going to have that problem. My guess is that if they have trouble blocking early, they'll kind of abort all the extra receivers and start leaving tight ends and running backs in. So now they're max protecting. That's going to put stress on the outside. Right, it's going to put stress on our corner. So Zeke and Jair Hill, this is going to be a big week for y'all, because I do believe that Dylan Raiola is going to be able to hold on to the ball a little bit longer. I do think they're going to plan for some of the pressures that Wink has. I do think that they are going to max protect. That being said, that means deep ball usually. If we need the extra time to push the ball downfield, that's alert to our outside cover guys. So really need a strong performance from Jair, and kind of similar to what we were talking about at Oklahoma, man. You get an opportunity to pick one of them balls off, take it. Don't let them live to fight another day. Can change the entire complexity of the game. Just take the opportunities when they're there. Pressure on Dylan Raiola. I don't know how well Nebraska's stopping the run. This is kind of hard to tell in the games that they've had so far. But if they are able to stop the run to any real effect from Michigan, we're just having that smooth transition. All right. Like, all right, we accounted for this. We had a backup. If they're stymieing the run, if we're getting 3 yards a gain, here's what we're going to pivot to. Right. Or we're going to try to get outside. We're going to try, QB counter. We're going to try something else to try and loosen up the defense on the outside. This will be our last game this season without Sherrone Moore. So that's good. More free offense, I think, is what we'll see. The question for me then is, what do we get coming back? What do you get when the big guy's back in the building? Because they've been doing a lot of talking his praises. Biff has. I think the assumption is that he's on board with everything that's happening so far. It would be a shame for him to get the keys back and then all of a sudden we back in the carpool lane. It would be a shame. So something to pay attention to for sure. And I think he's got it. He's not a he may be a stubborn person, but I don't think he's an idiot. So you see where the wind's going. The kid won freshman of the week in the Big Ten off of his offensive performance. I think I think that's the right way to go. I respect the fact that he wants to keep the players upright, wants to keep everybody safe. But you can only protect them as far as the point where it starts losing you games, and then now it's a whole different calculus. So I will give my official score prediction for Michigan Nebraska on Saturday on the college football show at 11. So make sure y'all tune in then. um Other than that, let us know what you thought about the game against the Chippewas there, and then what you think about Saturday's game versus Nebraska. We'll hit you with another one coming out next week after the Nebraska game. See you on Saturday. Peace out, folks.